have approval of the minutes of the regular meetings of April 29th, April 30th, and a special meeting of May 3rd, which were given to you several weeks ago. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? If there are no additions or corrections, they'll stand approved as submitted. We have an appearance request for tonight, Gary Goose, and we'd like to hear from you, Jim. What comments you have from the charter?
Well, since I want to go listen to Benny Goodman,
Really?
you can be a lot closer. I'm not going to take much more time.
Great. I don't know if everyone, Mr. Chairman, if everyone's aware that Mr. Gary Goose is a distinguished member of the Past Charter Commission.
Yes, I am well aware.
Well, I don't mean to appear here in an adversary position at all. I do have concerns about the way this administrative branch of government has been constituted. I think you can exercise one or two options here. I think that you would have more efficient government if you had gone for this other option, that is a strong legislative body rather than a strong administrative body. I believe you've seen examples of that here, which certainly in the case of the borough has been quite a source of friction. A lot of time has been spent on infight, which has also been spent on serving the people. As a result of that, now, this municipal attorney section 404, this is one of the things that the last commission agonized over a great deal. And as I recall, the people that supported the administrative requirement prevailed. However, since that time, the Borough Assembly in Missouri did enact an ordinance to that effect. But we did not have enough votes there to override the mayor's veto when he vetoed it. But there have been for quite some time the majority of those on the assembly believe this would make a more efficient, more responsive form of government. That attorney was a little more beholden to the legislative branch of government. Now, legislators, of course, are policymakers, but the source of friction comes because they sometimes feel that their policy is not being carried out as they intended it to be carried out. That's the basic source of friction between the legislative and administrative branch of government. And this has been a rather awkward arrangement on a number of occasions where this municipal attorney hired by the mayor, he winds up being beholden to the mayor. And it's like I say, it's been a rather distressing position for those who are in a legislative position. It's really frustrating at times. Stepping back to this vacancies, I had a little typo in there. You haven't changed that item D there. You say the president. I know you're going to call his family chairman.
I'm sorry, Jim, what section was that, please?
Oh, that was just a little typo in section 4.03. Now, possibly a way of temporizing this manager thing, which I think the previous charter referred to as the chief administrative officer, would be some kind of removal clause in there that would enable the legislative body, if they got up to their eyebrows, to take some kind of action. There again, once this man is hired, the legislators don't have any recourse against him whatsoever. Because if you believe that you should continue in this route with the executive branch of government being a strong mayor, and he appoints his chief administrative officer, if you think this is the way it should prevail, and I would suggest that to give the legislature a little more clout in this section here on manager, where it says it's appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the assembly, serves at the pleasure of the mayor, can be removed by a 2/3 or 3/4. A heavy percentage majority of the legislative body, if they've got their half of this guy, will be able to discuss.
3/4 to remove administrative.
To remove this manager. But I believe that the legislative body should be in a position there to take some action if they find it necessary.
Chair.
I feel very strongly about the legislative body having enough power to execute or to establish policy and make sure that the policy, once established, is carried out.
Did I hear you saying that you would prefer the other kind of arrangement, a manager-mayor form? Council
Yes,
manager form?
I certainly do favor that.
If the group should decide in rewriting to go that form, would your comments be the same about the attorney?
Yes, sir. Well, it would just, then you would revert to more like your city charter type thing, where if you've got a hired professional, chief professional, then it's just a matter of course, if the legislative body will hire the attorney. You people are probably pretty strong. I'm sorry, I've been out of town and haven't been able to follow this. Obviously, informed is now, and you've got some real strong committees here for the strong mayor form of government. I don't agree, but if this is the thing that's going to prevail around this table, then I would suggest a couple of alternatives there that would make it more powerful. I really have observed in the past a legislative body's inability to see its policies carried out. Without going into a bunch of examples, I've just really seen this happen, and I don't think it's healthy or desirable for human government. I believe that it would be constructive in section 4.044 commissions that these members should be nominated by the assembly, or they should be asked to make nominations, and then the chief administrative officer, mayor, remains that way, would appoint. But I believe the nominations should come from the assembly. Probably one of the most distressing things in this charter, to me, are these community councils. And I would recommend that this article be stricken from the document entirely. I think you'd be creating something there. Number one, it's going to undermine the legislative process of government. It will definitely do that. You find that legislators will be very seriously hampered in their exercise of judgment if they've got to make book with this community council, or go take a poll every time they vote on a major issue. This Article 5 is just a good introductory thing for mob rule. Now, I sat on the legislative body, and I very well recognize mob rule when I see it. And after anybody's been there, I know you will too. You get a very vocal minority that shows up every time and time again to protest. And they're not reasonable. It's a cumbersome process. It wastes a lot of time in government. I can see some merit in having community councils that would serve the outlying areas, like Girdwood and the Indian area. They've got a very viable one down there. Indian got Eagle River that comes into this thing, I suspect they could use one there. But I just really don't see where this is, it's duplicated in another event, because we've got another program here called Community Schools. You've got this program, and right alongside of it, you've got Community Council. And I think these things are in conflict, or in competition, or they're definitely in duplication. The present statute provides the Community Council, and I think that any future government should have the option to watchdog this thing closely and see whether or not it's going to work. But of all the items in this document, I think this is probably the most confusing thing to a lot of people, and probably one of the biggest sources of friction that you're going to have. On your conflict of interest or board of ethics, I don't know whether you're going to go into this anymore, but I can personally say that I think something should be done with that. Any conflict of interest legislation or disclosure legislation, it's necessary, yes. But I think safeguards should be written into this thing so it cannot be used for a witch hunt. I definitely believe that.
Jim, it's a problem to get in, you know, that we tried, as you can, I'm sure, see, avoid that legislative, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but do you have any ideas? I agree with your point, but how do you do that without going into,
Well,
you know, far
it
more
is an
depth?
adversary proceeding, and I think, well, it's up to the legislative body to and it should just be spelled out that they should, once this is established, they should establish some guidelines to protect individuals facing either disclosure or ethics obligations. And I secondly feel that if a person is going to be involved in an adversary proceeding like this, like a jury, you've got challenges on the jury. There are people sent on that ethics commission that you don't feel like you're going to get a fair hearing on. I believe you should have a right to challenge their being there, and also possibly the right to replace someone, make it sort of an arbitration thing where people could be asked to stand aside, and maybe alternates may take their place. But I believe in both of them. I believe they're a very healthy thing for government. I think it's, I just really don't appreciate seeing them used to go on a witch hunt. I think anybody that uses it to that end ought to get their knowledge. That's some of my comments on the document.
Jim,
I feel real strong about this managerial thing, and also the mayor. There are ways to change it around.
I'm afraid I have a question. Jim, would you comment on ombudsman and representation? What's your opinion now?
Well, I believe your mayor, if you had a weak mayor, and then somehow chief administrative officer, or if you decided to opt for a manager, and still want to have a mayor, I think the mayor is the one that should head up what should be known as Office of Information and Complaint. And I don't know whether you need to call this thing an ombudsman or not. I do believe you need an Office of Information and Complaint. And that works quite well. That's one of the things that's working excellently in the Honolulu City County. Because they've got an Office of Information and Complaint there that's got 5 or 6 people on it. They are a very good problem-solving agency. There were several other things that I observed in the Honolulu charter, and one of them is that the legislators have got the option to go full-time if they want to. Now, I don't know whether there's any prohibition, but maybe that should be spelled out somewhere along the line. the legislative body may at a later date, decide whether or not some of these people should be full-time. Now, they do that in Honolulu. If they go full-time, then they have to divest themselves of all their business interests. But, Dwight said this is pretty, they've got a 9-member body, and they meet probably 15 hours a week. They'll meet one whole afternoon and evening, and then
With the manager?
No, they've got the mayor there. The mayor don't even show up. And as long as they don't pick, they've got a strong mayor. And his staff are there voluntarily. If in the mayor's opinion that they're picking on the staff, then the staff don't have to go to the meeting. Let's see, I visited this Office of Information and Complaints. And such as I say, it's a very well-run, very efficient thing. Once it gets transmitted to the paper, those people get an answer. Even if it's just something really picky news, they get a white bus that's 15 minutes late. They had another thing that worked quite well there. They're called satellite city halls, where people could go pay their bills. Now, you asked me about the legislative body?
No, representation. Multi-member, single member.
Dick had a question too.
Before you get off this, Jim, what was the Office of Inquiries and Complaint? Where was it situated?
It was in the mayor's office.
It was in the executive. Appointed by the mayor, you didn't know?
That's right.
Significantly different than ombudsman.
It was part of the executive branch of government.
Do you have any thoughts on the representation that is a single member, multi-member, at large?
Having been one of the supporters of the present system, I'll say no on the record. I think that's desirable. I was a little surprised that your poll showed that they want single-member districts. I think multi-member districts are probably more desirable. I don't think you should consider yourself bound to any. I have a feeling that if you had a smaller legislative body, you'd do better. I think this community.
You mean like
had
9?
7 or 9 people.
Really?
Well, I've seen the 9 people. Now, they've
I think
9 people. They have 9 people in Honolulu. And they've got, there's 800,000 people in there. And Island Oahu, and they're all in, and they're elected by districts.
9 districts.
Specific districts. And,
How about designated seats, Jim? In a large group?
well, I think if you're going to try to cool down the cost of campaigning or something, you're going to have to put it in some kind of a neighborhood situation. If that's one of the reasons for having districts of any type, would be to make the person more responsive to the area that he represents, then I think there should be, it should either be a single-member district or a multi-member district. On a multi-member district was a compromise that I think the Assembly arrived at because there was too much opposition to the single-member districts within the city, and I would further do a little post-mortem on that. Had that thing been presented to the voters on with the single-member districts when it went to the ballot box in October, it wasn't carried inside. If you look at a multi-member district, thing only carried by a couple hundred votes in town. Well, I just don't really have any strong feelings about designated seats.
Well, Mr. Chairman, designated seats, of course, aren't necessary for this system. Is that what you're talking about, this system? I mean, they're not necessary, they are designated.
No, within a at-large district, a multi-member district, have at-large voting, but from areas within that district having come from a designated area, I should say designated area rather than a designated seat.
Then there's no
That does-
reason not to have single-member districts. Then you're,
Thanks, talking about residents, I think, in certain areas,
no,
area-wide.
but vote.
But vote at large in the multi-member district, just a thought.
Have you, has the runoff elections, have we put these things?
No, they're not in there yet. We've had testimony favoring it, however, particularly in the first, at least in the transitional for the first election.
Well, I haven't been a candidate, I should just really, don't say that I'd be interested in runoff elections, but I still think it's a real healthy thing for government. Places quite a burden on the candidate, but I think it needs to be placed there, and I think it's one good way of kind of equalizing things whenever an incumbent is re-elected.
Jim?
Some of us are puzzled on that particular thing because part of the testimony we get is that it's more democratic to have runoff because you can have people piling up against a candidate and no one really getting a large significant vote. And then in the runoff you're down to 2. But at least the evidence here has been that the turnout was even poorer for the 2 than it was for when there were more candidates. And that in essence it's I don't know. There's those who say that even if only 10% of the people vote, it still reflects the people who are informed enough to go to the polls versus the thing that, golly, this is only 5% of the total voting registered.
We had 11% turnout in the February 11th election, and I understand there were about 1,600 people voted in that district, and they only got about 50% of that and went for the other. But I still think, and if they hadn't had runoff, the end results in that particular contest would have been different. And while it's probably a great deal of fatigue for the people, the clerks that run the election, it's really a hassle for a candidate that's involved in it. I still think it's a way for the people to arrive at really a clear cut to decide themselves. In spite of the turnout, in spite of the expense, the drawbacks, the fatigue of elections and all, I think it's a very healthy and desirable thing to go.
I think Jake had another question.
No, other than the fact that I'm very, very undecided about that, on that issue, Jim, and I'd appreciate your collaborating as much as you can, because I was very much in favor of that when the Assembly approved it originally. In fact, I think I was on that Assembly. I think you were too. And I think we supported it. If I'm recollecting correctly. Very much in favor of it. And then we put that in the charter last time. But doggone it, the turnouts have just been so miserable. Now, in the case of the mayor, maybe that's not true. I don't know. I think
Well,
something I'm sure I'm saying.
if you cite this last election, for example, it was an off-season election. It was in not an enormous time of year. It was just a small turnout. It's just one of the things you limit. I think it's very healthy fuel and government. I'd say run it for all longer.
You like 40%?
I don't think it should be any more than that. I think that's enough to where it's decisive. I think if you raise it any more, you
Always have one.
guarantee it.
About Lori. About Lori.
I would say stick with the 40%. I think that's about as
Why not guarantee a runoff?
Well, I'll tell you,
That clarifies it a little bit anyway. Why not make it 50%?
Gary, well, I don't think so, because I'll tell you, the fatigue of those elections is just real.
Can have the election anyway, frankly. In all probability.
Expense of an election now. And it's getting more and more, and you've got these disclosure laws, which are good, but they also, I would say 40%, and I would try it how long, I was getting discouraged over what happened, that was just one incident. I definitely think it should be in there for the mayor, whether the man winds up being a strong mayor or a weak. I think that should be about 40%.
Jim, I don't want to rush you, but well, yeah, 8:20, they started last night, right?
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
8:30. We certainly appreciate it. Is there any questions that you can get in last minute?
No, so we want to thank you for this information.
Well, I want to apologize for not being in town to go to regular hearing.
We always appreciate you taking the time to come.
Thanks,
Enjoy
Jim.
your concert.
It was neat.
Gotta go do something about it.
In your information packet is something from Rowan. I haven't read it myself. Haven't looked at it. I may want to take the time now to scan it.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I thought we'd end up with a very positive survey. Instead, we ended up with a kind of a hit-or-miss type of thing where, again, it appears that there isn't as much strong support for a lot of these things that we thought there was. When you look down this thing, the strong support is very light. Yeah, that one, our sales tax went real strong, but the rest is come see, come shop. And I thought we were going to get a very definitive survey.
Of course, when you do ask questions, you record the answers. Well, if you don't ask the right questions, you usually get wrong.
I mean, 23 people strongly support Anchorage. 23%. Well, probably 23 people.
But people are always wary of saying that they strongly support anything. I mean, that really, you put yourself out on the line. So I think you have to look at support or strongly support as a group.
You can ask the person to define their support. I mean, I'm not that wary. I've never found them. I mean, you could pin someone down. How strong do you feel about this? You feel real strong. Most of the time, the guy will come back and say yes. If he understands what he's saying, now he may ask you to explain it. Which I have done. I've taken my own survey on this thing, and I find that people have asked me to explain what I'm asking. And once I've explained it to them, they'll take a very strong position, because they know what they're talking about. But it is a wishy-washy survey as well, not concerned.
Is it normally this warm?
Just the tension building up.
No, this room in the summer is not well cooled. It's been my experience anyway.
It's often this way in the winter. Boy, they really did the sales tax, didn't they?
Yeah, they were strong on that, but the rest? But I've never seen, my point, Sherry, is I've never seen surveys where you have a degree of support. They're either for or against.
But you can get the same data by lumping it, Fred, by taking this which came to mind. You know what color? I mean, if you lump your categories of support and opposition, you come out with exactly the same thing. And it's just, I mean, this tells you that people really feel strongly about the sales tax.
Right. That's about all.
as compared with the other things which they support, and maybe they support it because they support the charter, and maybe they support it because
That's
they
right.
really support that.
That's right.
You don't know why. but
It's
the
really not an
important thing
indicative
is-
thing.
The important thing is that the majority of the people, I guess, would vote for the document as it is today, according to this survey.
Well, I've taken a survey of my own. 563 people. I got 302 for council manager, 327 multi-district, 341 to sell utilities, which we didn't ask. And then I just took another separate one here just for June, 145 contacts, 83 did not want a community council, 101 no ombudsman. Now, I have to be fair about this. A lot of the people asked, what do you mean by an ombudsman? And it was explained, and after it was explained, the person took a positive stand. Just as with multi-member district, they said, what's the difference between a single member and a multi? And it was explained. I think if it's explained, you'll get people to take a very positive stand on it, rather than these ambiguous questions that are being asked.
What exactly was this we have from June 11th, 75, the Rowland Group?
That's the hand count of the second survey.
The hand count of the second survey, and did it include, well, it probably doesn't give the demographics. Does it include Eagle River this time?
Didn't they go back to the
They were told
about
about
the
the
same
Eagle
number of people? I think he said they covered 25 representative people in Eagle River. They carried a copy of the charter with them, so some of the questions were given as a result of reading, the person reading the charter section to which they were referring when they were making a statement.
Well, really from the basis of this, which they support or strongly support everything we've said, right?
It would, well, yes, but, yes,
Yes or no?
You know, I don't know how Fred's were worded. If we had written out that we had a council manager form of government exactly like this, and then asked strongly support, opposed, I would suspect that reading the sentence through, people would say, yeah, I'd vote for that. Unless they were a group that had a point on
For instance, the way we asked one question.
one way or the other.
The way we asked one question was, do you know the difference between a multi and a single member district? Invariably, the person said, I've got an idea what it is, but I'm not sure. Could you explain it to me? And we'd explain it.
Who's the we you're talking about?
I had one talking to 3 girls doing it, 3 secretaries. Just for kicks, to see what we come up with. Once it was explained, then we said, person, think about it, which one would you favor? And as I say, under that condition, 327 out of 563 said multi-district.
That's not overwhelming.
It isn't overwhelming, no. The others just said, well, we're going on with single member. But my objection to this is to come back and give a commission degrees of support instead of either a support or a non-support. I mean, here again, we have to sit here and try to interpolate something that they should have done.
They will, I think, when we ask them to hurry up and give us a hand count so that we have something to work with when we're revising the charter. This survey is intended not so much to aid us in drafting the charter, but to aid us in public relations work on the charter. And we said,
Well,
could you quickly hand count it for us so that we can...
Mr. Chairman, at this point, aren't we supposed to go back now and take acknowledgement of all the public testimony and everything we've heard to date and fine-tune the charter to reflect what we feel is the final thing and then set it out?
I think that's
Right?
basically is what you're...
Which me signifies that we should be arguing about any changes that we want to get into.
I did feel that you'd want to take a scan on this, and I do know that there are a lot of things here that we're going to present points of argument. And that's the next item on the agenda.
Do we have an agenda, Mr.?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I have an extra one.
The general discussion of important philosophy points in the charter, and that's recognizing that Joe Josephson and Mary Crony and a couple other people are just not here.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a remark on that? We're not going to have everybody Monday either. My phone poll gets worse by the day. People call in.
Is there any chance, when do you guys think that we could meet, that we could all meet? Would Saturday be a time?
No, I'm going to be out of town.
Huh?
I'll be out of town until Monday. I'll be back Sunday night.
Joe's going.
I just think we ought to be, if we're going to decide any changes, any major changes in this, we ought to be all there to do it.
It seems to me that Mary probably will not be back. I was she called and left a message. I was out saying that she was going to Chittenden. Some confusion. I don't know whether it was that she'd be free Tuesday, but I understand that she was to be back for the assembly meeting Monday night. But I think that was put out a Monday afternoon meeting. I'm just wondering if we could aim for Tuesday night. I don't know. I have no idea what she should do.
Well, basically,
Jim has a conflict Monday night.
I think there's going to be some
I'll be in Seattle Monday,
discussion on the form of executive. I think there's going to be further discussion on the form of the manner of representation. And I don't want to end up with a position where somebody's going out to the public and I consider I didn't have a chance to opportunity to vote for something like that.
Well, when can we get 11 people?
We've been able to do it a few times.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it's the 12th of June, and we have, if we're heading for that August election, which everyone has said all along they'd like to head for, we have to really be finished with the charter by the 7th of July, because it has to be in the clerk's hands in final form by the 12th of July, and that leaves only 5 days for the polishing, and it can't be polished the way we did the rough draft. I mean, it has to be really polished. And that leaves us, what, 3 weeks?
3 weeks. Well, almost 4 weeks.
From next Monday?
Time's fleeting, you're right, and we've got to get something started by this weekend.
Well, Rick has already started, and there are certainly things that we could do tonight, but I think we're going to run into no end trouble if we do not have 11 members present for the debate. I just think that we have to bite the bullet and find that date.
That's right, we're going to have to bite the bullet, exactly.
And the sooner we do it,
Maybe the thing to do,
Is there a possibility that the other council members can be here this weekend?
No, Joe is gone.
could we do this rather than waste time? Could each of us express what we feel should be changed tonight? Let the others communicate what they feel should be changed. Let's consolidate all that and see how bad off we are. And then we'll into our meeting next week prepared, knowing that these points have to be debated to pick up time. In other words, let's have everybody take a vote on their own right now and consolidate the votes without benefit of discussion.
How are we on next Thursday night among those present on absolute commitment? I'm not going to go down and see the old will people put into the government? That's all.
I'd hate to let it ride that late if it's at all possible to have it earlier.
So did you just hear Fred? Fred says Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, he's gonna be gone.
Thursday night is Don Young's thing, and I'm at that.
And Thursday night, the Atlanta Ballet.
Well, you know,
Hey,
maybe you're gonna write
And
a
let the
charter.
congressman
That's
down.
right. I can get other people to do things rather than be at these other things, and that's what I've done tonight. And this is a heavy commitment, I consider, that takes precedence over most other things.
How about Monday morning?
Fine.
I don't know what time.
I'm sure Mary's gonna be able to.
Can't make it.
Does Mary, you can't make it? How about Mary, I'm gonna be here Sunday?
How about Thursday afternoon?
Fine.
What's too far down the road? Really?
5 o'clock.
Huh?
By the time you got a job, living off the hill. Awful.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I submit that you're not going to get 11 people together.
I don't think you are.
If you do, it's going to be by accident, and I don't think you ought to be concerned about it. It'd be nice, I think it'd be a nice luxury, and if we can't, we can't. The legislative bodies run all the time with all the members present.
Well, David,
You're just going to have to run.
as a matter of your past experience, were there crucial issues that were decided with members absent?
That's tough, man. They're absent, and they just don't. You know, I haven't personally complained about any of the meetings. If actions taken at a meeting that I've missed, I figure I just missed it.
Do you feel it influenced the way the charter went because someone was not in on a vote last time? You do?
What I'm getting at, Dick, if we can take a vote now, we may find when we consolidate the vote that we're all in agreement on many of these issues that be changed. And we can save a hell of a lot of time and narrow it quickly down, make it a one big issue, which we might be able to do back and forth by phone.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't know. What I'm saying is I don't know why we just don't proceed forward. And frankly, I don't feel well this evening, but I don't know why we don't anyway. I mean, we're here, we're meeting, let's get with it. Let's get on the show.
Do we have a quorum?
And let's start going through the charter point by point.
We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. I'll go with Dick.
I just want to know what turns down.
What we could hear, I guess, but turn it on.
I would really like to turn it on. Well,
Are the windows that can be open?
Negative. You don't know the chair.
I think they turned the building system off tonight too.
Well, Mr. Chairman, we may come to the issue of form executive and representation, and I'm going to, if I can, by rules of procedure, either vote no or abstain, because I feel I've given my personal commitment to Joe Jorgensen not to take action. Joe left town under the impression of some discussion that we were working toward an 11-member, and I just, sorry.
It does look pretty difficult to put together 11-member. I don't think we can wait 10 days for it. And if we're going to have, obviously, under that constraint, you have to go on the favoring side and then ask for reconsideration or whatever.
Well,
I can see us,
There are a lot of
we
things
agree
we
that
can
at some
possibly
point
take
there
care
is
of.
an end point at which you can't wait any longer to make these decisions. And then if someone by need or by obstreperousness decides to absent themselves, then you just don't accommodate their
There's one other thing, Rick.
Nothing special, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering if it proves impossible to get the 11, would it be acceptable at all to adjust the rules to permit an absentee vote on certain key issues?
And Mr. Chairman, there's another way that we could go. If all the members are noticed that at such and such a meeting we're going to do it. There has been confusion this week in attempting to set up the meeting. Mary went off feeling all was well. Joe went off, thinking we were going to have a meeting at some point to do this. That's really my point, in a sense of fairness that they know.
Sure go along with that.
And then if there's 7 on hand, let her go. They have theirs, and if they have to change going to San Francisco.
At our regular meeting next Thursday night,
What are we going to do?
bring up the key issues, which we will now decide what those are.
All right.
The meeting's on Thursday night?
Thursday night.
Can we go in absentee situation by vote?
Well, let's check our rules of procedure and find out. And if not,
Because I won't be here Thursday, but I want to vote.
You're not by proxy?
No, but I got a Don Young thing Thursday night.
Is Don Young more important?
You're damn right he is. He's your congressman. Let have respect for him. I expect to incumbent positions all the
Let's
time.
check the rules before we go.
So,
Rules of procedure.
What's
I can
the
find it again.
You have no idea.
I was gonna ask you.
Dick, didn't you bring that Robert's Rules of Order?
It's not permitted, Mr. Chairman.
we're fighting socialism.
I didn't bring it along, but
We're
there's
trying to
no
get rid of this
provision.
creeping socialism.
Rules of procedure call for no voting by proxy. I know that one.
Mr. Chairman, it reads that each member, including the chairman, shall be entitled to one vote. There shall be no voting by proxy or written balloting by absentee commission members.
There is also procedure for amending.
I was going to read that. The rules and procedure may be amended at any regular meeting of the commission by a majority vote of the membership of the commission. So 6 people then could vote to suspend the rules or to create a special rule for, whatever.
Mr. Chairman, what about if tonight, if we decided on the wording of ballot issues to be placed on a ballot next week, which could be voted on at any time prior to the meeting of Thursday, whatever next Thursday is, or at the Thursday meeting?
Well, it's not quite that simple as far as I'm concerned, in that so many things are interrelated. If A is adopted, then I want A prime. If B is adopted, I want to go B prime. If A and B are adopted, I'm not giving in on C.
You'll be here Thursday.
Yep.
Then I turn the mic here.
I would move that we discuss the major policy questions at our regular meeting next Thursday night.
Second.
Question, what are the major policy issues?
Well, we'll decide those in a few minutes.
To discuss the major policy decisions next Thursday night.
I'd ask for unanimous consent, Mr. Chairman.
I do want to point out that in the meeting, I'm entitled to a vote. According to that, if I'm not here, I'm good. It says I'm entitled to a vote. But I can't absentee and I can't proxy, but I'm entitled to a vote according to that.
If you're here.
No, it doesn't say that.
No, Fred, you have the option.
Presentation.
I'll second that.
She didn't finish it, wait.
No, it's not.
Form of representation, school board.
Commissions,
I think we ought to start.
commissions.
We did that tonight.
A lot of people brought that up. You can't ignore them.
Will you please come back to the motion now? Tell us what it is as amended.
Mr. Chairman, the motion as amended would be to vote on the major policy questions next Thursday night. And those major policy questions would be the form of government, the method of representation, community councils, the ombudsman, and school district representation.
And that's got a second, Mr. Chairman.
There's been a second to the amendment.
School board representation.
All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed?
Mr. Chairman, at this point, if there's any doubt, if there's something that someone else would like considered that I've left out, I think now's the appropriate time to Rick looks like he's considering.
Well, Mr. Chairman, the only other concern I thought had received an awful lot of play, which is unresolved, is exactly how utilities will be handled in the course of the transition. Who gets the money and this sort of thing? It means a lot to a lot of people now.
That's pretty good schedule for next Thursday night.
I think if we undertake the I don't think it would be necessary next week. But is there any member of the Charter Commission want to amend the amended motion? Not?
and then we get a
Mr.
vote.
Chairman, can I clarify that? I don't believe that's an amended motion.
Well,
That's
it's
substitute.
Substitute.
amendment becomes the main motion.
Oh, was it? No, I thought we passed it. It was
We
a substitute.
passed the amendment.
Oh, wasn't that you were the maker of the original motion? I thought there was
And I
substitute.
amended my main motion.
Oh, you did? Oh, I thought you were
So now we have to vote on the main motion.
Super!
I wish
Is
you'd
there
brought
any
your
further
full support.
discussion on the main motion?
Question.
Questions called for? I think roll call.
What's the main motion now?
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask for unanimous consent. Unanimous ballot be cast.
What's the
Figured that
motion?
unanimous ballot be cast. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, unanimous ballot is cast for the main motion, which is to vote on the major items delineated next Thursday.
Mr. Chairman,
Jane?
I'd like to move to change the rules of procedure for next Thursday night. And for those members who will be absent, they may cast proxy ballots on the major issues which were delineated in the previous motion.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
Mr. Shai seconded, Ms. Sanders.
Absentee, not proxy.
Is there discussion?
Now, just for clarification, does that mean they would give to someone else, or they would write ahead the specific motion that they would approve? For instance, a question that Jim raised where, let's say that we would go to the council manager form, and would this proxy be so specific that it would say that there would be 10 members from single-member districts with an elected mayor? In other words, the detail spelled out, or a philosophy that somebody would interpret for them.
What I would suggest is that for those members who will be absent, they write in motion form the issues that have been raised on these 5 areas, what they want. If their particular motion is amended or changed, then they no longer have to vote on the issue.
Pro or con?
Either way, what they can do is try and sell their product in their absence in writing.
So it would be, they
For
would
example,
speak
if
to a
Fred said-
specific motion.
If Fred said, I want city manager form of government, period, then his vote counts on city manager form of government, no matter how we
In any
amend
form.
that anyway. If on the other hand, Fred writes and says, I want city manager, I want 10 members, and I want to elect it this way, and that doesn't fly, then he's no longer in the running, the motion is amended. So it would be to the advantage of the people who will not be present to broadly define what it is that they want.
Leaving a lot of latitude.
It's going to make a very difficult situation.
It is.
Chairman,
I would prefer a proxy under those conditions, where you proxy somebody on the board.
No, I still want proxy.
I see maybe difficulties with it, and I intend to vote against the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I think that if we do allow for reconsideration, and I think that if any member who's absent feels sufficiently strongly about it that they can convince a present member to request reconsideration, that is the way they get their voice heard at this point.
All right, I understand what you're saying, Sherry. My concern is time, and which is yours also. And if we have a reconsideration vote, puts us 2 weeks from tonight on whether or not we attack these issues. So, anybody can reconsider anytime they want. I'm well aware of that.
Dick?
I think that's not going to eliminate that possibility. I'm going to vote against the motion too. I think all the major legislative bodies do not permit this. And you're really giving up your rights. And I think it's going to lead to all sorts of problems, confusion, misinterpretations, rulings by the chair, you know, and just the things that get in a mess.
You're right.
Hey, Sharon, this perhaps is out of order, but I don't feel I can support that. And I'm just wondering if we might consider doing something a little bit different next Thursday night, and that is to start a meeting at 4:30, work as the city council does. That way we'd have these, and I think a pretty good indication others will be in town, and we could start in on major issues and, well, if we have to, then we should cancel it. I didn't, nobody
I don't
said
think you're
it.
going to accomplish anything that way, because you know as well as I do, once the argument gets good and heavy, you must spend 4 hours on one issue and never get to the other sensitive issues.
Well,
So the
I'm
person
trying
has
to
to excuse
accommodate,
himself.
frankly, your being on hand for these,
Yeah, but what happens, I'll be there until 6, and then the issues come up at 7 o'clock.
Well, okay, then, well, all I was going to do in my motion is try to give people the present voice that's not the method they want to pursue, and I will drop motion.
Well, there is a motion on the floor and it's been seconded.
I just withdrew it.
You withdrew it. Motion's been withdrawn. Second. Agrees, there too?
Yeah, I'm the second, I'll agree.
Well, then, we will be holding a meeting next Thursday night. And this place is damn well hot. I wonder if, I'm going to see if I can't locate someplace else that'll be a little bit cooler. I don't know whether the city council chambers.
May I ask a question, Sharon? Why don't we do it Thursday morning?
Well, I won't be here, but, you know.
You're not going to be here Thursday at all? No. Wait a minute, okay, forget it. He's not going to be here.
I'll be at home.
And it's only
Thursday
me.
night.
Well,
How about Wednesday, when I will be here? Wait a minute.
Right?
Suppose I cut my trip so I leave Seattle early and get here Wednesday night. Is everybody going to be here Wednesday night?
I'm going to be here Wednesday.
Sharon, you could miss,
I could miss.
you could miss Clarence.
If everyone else is,
Will everyone else be here Wednesday? Now, if that's a sure thing, I'll cut my trip down there, sure.
All right, well, Abby, tomorrow morning, will you poll the absent members, find out if they can be here Wednesday night?
I think that's the way to go.
If we can, we'll hold the meeting and we'll try to locate another place. Maybe the council chambers is usually a little better than this for coolness. Maybe
Mr. Chairman, if we don't anticipate a large group, we do have our own office with our own table.
that's 11, 12 around.
You'll be here Wednesday.
Pretty confined there for. I guess we can make.
James, you'll be here Wednesday.
Mary won't be back until Monday.
All right,
We won't know for sure.
let's set it
Lisa,
for
you'll be
Wednesday
here
night.
Lisa, you could be here.
Should we go before the
Well,
next
no, but
question?
she'll be around, you know, I think we can't change.
Let's set it for Wednesday night in the Charter Commission office.
Could happen.
She'll be back.
Could happen.
I think we can arrange it so that it won't be too crowded.
Just tell her we're going to vote.
We'll figure on the Charter Commission office on Wednesday night. Now, if there,
Wednesday night, okay.
do you,
7 o'clock?
Sherry, you and Arliss sometime ago prepared a timing program, several options and alternatives. Were those passed out to all the Charter Commission? We've got some constraints of time, and there's a couple items that I had requested to appear before the Rural Assembly this Monday night. Request I will withdraw now, and request it for the following Monday night. One of the things that they're discussing is the possibility that that they as an assembly put forth on August 12th, put out a couple of maps and have the apportionment election that burden or onus or whatever out of the charter. I've felt that if we went as a charter commission with a charter, we should come up with one proposal and ride on that, same as we're doing in other areas of the charter. And so that's something that we need to think about. Maybe we just tell the assembly that we'll put it in the charter, put it on the ballot with the charter. I don't know which way is best, and I think that's
Mr. Chairman, have you had any further communication with the members of the assembly or so on since that meeting that we held with you?
No, I have talked individually to a couple of them. I talked to Judge Dodson night before last, and she indicated that she thought the assembly would be willing to put it on the ballot, and that would be the best way to go. Put the reapportionment on the ballot. And she felt that putting the election of the with two charter election on October, and then following it with the charter election in October.
Well, she's talked about having on the August thing a map or several maps or
A couple of maps. Two. What she was talking.
Mr. Chairman, I think what I'd be prepared to support at this time would be an August 12 vote on reapportionment placed on the ballot by the Assembly, and a charter on the same ballot, but the charter worded to adopt the choice
the existing form.
adopted by the voters on that same ballot. In other words, the two would be on the same ballot, but the reapportionment in form or legislative decision would be made separately from the charter.
Well, why confuse the full voter with two maps? Why can't we narrow it down to one map?
Well, we can.
As a commission, this is why we were voted in, was to make these kinds of decisions for the voter.
Lisa?
I think that right now, they're pushing for an August 12th election, with no matter what type of map we have or anything like that, that we're going to kill ourselves. And that we're going to end up in the same situation that we did when we tried to complete the first draft, where we were working all the time, and I don't think that we're going to be in the same position where many people aren't going to be able to work all the time.
Mr. Chairman, we have right now, and it's difficult, we have a very down commission for a multiplicity of reasons. Part of it, the public hearing is over the fact that we're down to very much of a decision-making time. There's pressures of summer and people trying to go, and a general weariness. And I'm really, this reapportionment issue, Sherry's point, I think, is well taken. It'd be easy to say yes. However, again, we're trying to make a decision prior to reevaluating the basic form of government. It's very, very possible we're not going to have the same need for an assembly or a council as the borough assembly must have. And we're not in a position of being able to instruct the young man to start working on these maps. We really are setting a dreadfully difficult schedule for ourselves if we go to
What do you say? What would you propose? I move we go to September 9th election.
Jane had
Or October. I have a response to Mr. Child to say if you only have one map and one's defeated, then you're back to the start. And you have to start over again on trying to find a map that will go by. Whereas if you give them two, one's going to win.
Let's get a map that we will buy.
Well, the only problem though is it's the same problem. If they defeat the map, then we're back to zero where we have nothing. If you have an option of two, then one wins and one loses.
Yeah,
But I would like to know what Arliss is pushing for in her comments.
What I guess I'm pushing for is the fact that I don't think we can tell Fred to go to the assembly Monday night.
I
thought I heard you say he was already withdrawing.
Oh, you're finished, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed that, because it seems to me we've got to make that basic
If
decision.
we don't make the decision on the apportionment map, what Jane says psychologically has an advantage for us because you're given choice A or B. And by God, I'll vote for my choice A, and then I'll vote for the charter. And so you pick up some of the people who would vote for A and would vote for B, I think. You don't think so?
No, not necessarily.
I don't think that's necessarily, they might vote against, might not like either one of them.
Yeah.
Vote against the whole.
But your odds are better than if they only
That's
have
right.
one to shoot at.
Not necessarily.
No. No, your odds
Well,
are better if they have one.
You know, I think that the people may think that, Mr. Chairman, if I may, that may think very well that their choice, I think people are motivated much more by fear than they are by positive feeling. And that I think they much more think that my side's going to lose, so I'm going to vote against the charter. I mean, I think that's as sound an argument as any one of the others have put forward this evening.
Lisa?
What's the purpose of this discussion?
Basic purpose of this discussion.
We're trying to find a way to move it.
Is to determine, start out to be to determine if there's anything I can say to the commission on to the assembly on Monday night,
I think we can say
or
no.
not.
I think we asked,
Mr. Chairman, I do think it falls under unfinished business C, timing and procedures from now until the vote on the charter. That's what
Yeah.
And I think that's where we are. I think we're trying to decide what date we're heading for so that we have an idea whether it's necessary to kill ourselves this week.
There's one problem too. One of the assembly could very well decide to, the charter commission, we're going to put our enforcement on the ballot. They can vote jump it.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Fisher.
you know, and hey, I'm responding to what Lisa said about a later date, you know. Right now we're on schedule for August with no small amount of effort. It's been a great effort, time-wise. Well, you know, if we were going to decide this, I wish we would have decided some time back because we could have gone a lot easier and a lot more sanely and sensibly at this point. Now, you know, let's trudge forward.
right.
Insanely?
And the trouble, what you're
Well,
saying,
no, I don't know, but I think from now on, I think the hard work's over with. Frankly,
Right.
I think at this point forward.
Dick, what you're saying is we've been afraid to bite the bullet. Now let's stop biting the bullet. This is why we've been dragging our feet.
Mr. Chairman, I feel compelled to suggest that if Mr. Fisher wishes to trudge forward, that he attend the Charter Production Subcommittee meeting.
Well, no, Mr. Chairman, now, if you want to get it into an issue, get it into an issue. Now, you're not employed. I'm employed. I've got to make a living. Now, I'm sorry. A long time ago, I objected to daytime meetings. I'm not going to attend them. And I've said that. I've stated it. I'm not going to do it. I'm available any night of the week, and that's what I bargained for when I ran for this job. And I've been damn good about it. But I can't do it during the day. I've got a bank, a national bank, to get off the ground, and it's a primary responsibility with me, and I'm sorry.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I don't intend this as an attack, but most of the commission does have daytime jobs. And the way we did it, no, seriously, the way we did it, going up to the first draft, was to meet as a commission several nights a week, which took up most of the night, and then that left only the daytimes for charter production. Well, that's fine if we have a commitment at this point of enough people willing to do the revision.
If this commission will now sit down and resolve the issues, everything else will fall into place.
I don't even know why Sherry's bringing this up. I don't have any idea.
Well,
Would you explain?
I do have an idea, Dick, and I'll tell you what my idea is.
All right.
I think Sherry worked damn hard on the production, and she doesn't feel like working that hard in the near future. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
No, you're close to it, but I just think that to sit here and say blithely, Dick, you brought up that if we're going to change from the August date, we should have done it a while back, and that's what set me off. Okay, I, from the very beginning, said, let's look at this date more realistically, guys. It's going to be a bear to meet. Well, now we're coming up to it, and what I'm saying is unless we rally at this point as a commission and more people than just a couple of us work on the charter production for the next 3 weeks, we have to change the date. Because I'm not going to work day and night for the next 3 weeks to get the revision.
You're saying the same thing as Mr. Reed.
Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I've been asking for a month. And at the time that I left, people were talking to each other in the same tone of voice that they are at the present time. And it's my observation that people are very tired and that they've worked very hard. And I appreciate Dick's point that it would have been nice to know earlier that we might, as a matter of human frailty, or not even frailty, just the human condition, not be able to sustain a climate of constant crisis for a 6-month period. However, I do strongly feel that on the basis of listening to the Charter Commission discuss this point for the first hour that I've been back, that we are at a point of very severe frailty among ourselves, and that whether it's the appropriate time politically, whether it's the appropriate time in lieu of deadlines set previously, that this is a good time to slow down, only because the effectiveness of our work will, in my opinion, be jeopardized by pursuing our effort at a time when commissioners are very tired. I mean, I would support an effort to slow down.
Fred?
One of the biggest compliments, one of the biggest pluses that this commission has picked up is the fact that we made schedule. And this is the one plus that everybody talks about. They say, yeah, you guys made your deadline. I can't see where there's a tremendous amount of work ahead of us. The work is all behind us. We've written the charter. We're just talking modification of that charter now. There isn't that much work. And there isn't that much pressure. The pressure's coming from the fact that none of us feel like taking the glove off and jumping into the swim and starting to make some decisions. I think this is where the pressure is building up. It isn't in the production. It isn't in the writing of this thing. It's the fact that we're playing Mickey Mouse with ourselves. And all I'm saying is let's take the gloves off, let's get into some decision making, and the rest will fall into place.
Mr. Chairman, but I'd like, I really agree with Fred. And when I think that I think I've got a handle on a little bit on what we're doing and where we're going. I don't believe there's really any work for the Charter Production Committee at this point. I mean, so I'm not addressing myself to that at all, because I don't think, I think we're done with it. I think we are into going through, as a commission, going through the charter one last time. And I think as a commission, we've got to just sit down and do that. I don't frankly know what we're griping about tonight. I think we've got the worst behind us.
That's right. I agree with you.
Perhaps I'm the person that brought it to this point from the standpoint of saying that I felt there were some substantive changes going to be made, which might raise questions, because I know that there have been some changes of mine, thinking about the executive branch, and perhaps about apportionment. I don't know. We've heard Mary a number of times argue strongly for single-member districts. We've got all-member districts, and I don't know if there's any change in the commission on that. I don't mind taking a vote, and I know where I stand. I think quite a few others do. I think there are some that might be on both sides of the fence at the moment.
I don't know what we're taking a vote on, Mr. Chairman.
Well, right at this moment, we're not going to take any vote. We'll read it next week, but I'm only trying to outline, as I see it, what you say is no problem, and what I think has been no problem is basically that there may be some substantive changes.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I agree there may be, but I doubt it. And Mr. Chairman, I submit that I don't think, my best effort from this point forward, the Charter Production Committee, and I wasn't even addressing myself in the Charter Production Committee. Frankly, I think the worst part of the charter is over with. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been through this damn thing once, and I'm the only one here that has. And I think I've got something to offer in that respect. No, really. No, I said once before that many times ago that the August deadline was too ambitious. But it's only been too ambitious because it's been that much work up till now. From now on, it's clear sailing. Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go ahead with the August election and that anything to be done, any changes to be made, that we go through the charter as a full commission at the Thursday night meetings, bit by bit.
Good, I'll second that. I'll second that.
Mr. Chairman, that's what we should be doing now.
All right. This is a motion is in front of us.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I think there's a bit more. It's a very simple motion. It's going to take still additional work. There are people that need to be followed up and contacted on the matter of finance. There were some issues raised. There have been talking between Mr. Levesque, Mrs. Gallagher, and others. We have additional instruction that if we don't, as a Charter Production Committee, do it, that we instruct Rick to, if we just come in here on Thursday night, we ain't going to cut it. There's too much that has to be done. So I think that's very simplistic to say it can all be done here. I just don't think it's going to be.
Mr. Chairman, what kind of detail do we have to go through with these financial people for a charter? I mean, we're not going to go into the pick and shovel work of the transactions or anything like that. Most of that is behind us. I mean, I think we're creating a lot of work by running around soliciting these people at this point. I mean, the charter's just a conceptual thing. As Dick points out, we've gone through it. We've got it behind us. We're just talking changes now. Now, if you think you're going to solve this utility thing before August 12th, you're out of your mind. You're not going to solve that for a year. It isn't that simple. So I think we're just wasting a lot of time. Let's take the gloves off and get on with this thing. I think we're just trying to play curtsy to each other.
There is a motion before the body.
Mr. Chairman, what is
A second.
What is the
The motion was that we proceed the next Thursday night, item by item through the charter.
Well, we set up a Wednesday night meeting. That's what she said to me, that I just word for word was to go ahead with the August election by Thursday night meetings. Is that close?
Is that right, Lisa?
Pretty much, yeah. What does that mean to the Wednesday night meeting?
Also, any special meetings that there's a Senate in between them.
Regular meeting.
They're meetings.
You're liable.
By a regular meeting, so I
We'll do a regular and special. Sherry?
Is it included in that motion that the committees then do not function in between time? Is that? I mean, who prepares the chair's
I have
designation?
a question. I'll share it. If the Child Production Committee were to meet as it has in the past and go through article by article and suggest recommendations, is that necessary? Or could that be done on the floor when the commission meets and you say, okay, here we are at Article 1. Does anybody have any changes related to Section 101? Is it necessary, in fact, the Charter Production Committee to go through section by section and suggest alternatives?
Mr. Chairman, Jane, I don't think we'll really know until after next Wednesday night. If all the major policy things stay as they are, I think that we have a relatively simple task. If, for instance, however, we decide to make a change to the manager council form of government, that represents substantive changes in a couple of articles which will have to be drafted in advance of coming to the commission, I think. Otherwise, it would just be a very slow process.
Okay, to carry this motion, the committees would meet as required in relation to the work determined by the commission, which puts you back in limbo as far as what your committee does, as I hear it. And I guess listening to Fred and Dick, I'm curious to see if we can go through it again more simply or more concisely than we did the first time. I don't know. I simply don't know. And I'd certainly be willing to try, but I'm really deeply concerned about the anger and frustration that's been expressed at the table, and I'll shut up on that issue. It's just that I really legitimately question the effectiveness of our product as a result of our temperament.
Getting back to what Jane is saying, the Charter Commission production group should really be able to do all the minor cleanup. There's no reason for the commission to get involved in that. I think that should be up to their judgment and decision. There was a lot of things that have to be changed that came up at the public hearings, a lot of mistakes, a lot of rephrasing and all that. And a lot of the minor points I don't think we should bother as a commission. However, as a commission, we are going off in a lot of tangents here. We're not organized. We should start with the one policy decision that has to be made which affects the overall charter, which is the council-manager form of government. Right now, we should be deciding that, because that is the key point. Once that's decided, everything else falls into place. The ombudsman, the community councils and all that become minor, but that is the key issue, and that's the thing we seem to be dancing away from.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, then...
I would move to postpone until next Wednesday night the consideration of the motion on the floor. There's a second motion.
Second.
All right. I think the way we proceed is all tied into the basic decisions. I agree that we should attempt to get those people here, that we should do some serious thinking of what's needed, come in ready to go next Wednesday night. I think tonight we're going to do, as Jane said, shoot arrows. I'm sorry.
All those in favor of our motion?
Aye.
Those opposed?
I'm opposed. I think we're just delaying
Sure, we're delaying.
the battle. Why can't we get started now discussing this thing?
We're delaying the battle there's going to be a battle to next Wednesday night, and hopefully more people can be here.
Mr. Chairman,
If they aren't, that's their business.
there seems to be a doubt of the job we have to do. There seems to be a doubt in people's mind of what we have to do now.
There's no doubt in my mind.
Well, can I turn? Well, no, seriously, Mr. Chairman, why aren't we sitting down this evening and starting to go through the charter? I mean, that's what I'm here to do.
Basically, because two members at least are not here because they felt that there would be no substantive decision.
Well, Mr. Chairman, in that case, then, and really, in consideration of the rest of us, the church should call the meeting off, because it would have been nice to have a night off. And, Mr. Chairman, I think we ought to start through it, and let's get on with it.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, I think that we can, as soon as we resolve the unfinished business items on the agenda, begin going through the charter tonight with other than those major policy questions. I have no problem with that at all. What we were attempting to do in our discussion was to decide what our target date was so that we had an idea of whether we would have to kill ourselves or just mutilate ourselves between now and August.
I would like to ask in that regard if we have any additional information on the court
Decision at 10 tomorrow.
Decision at 10 tomorrow on the court.
They hope the academics.
I'm sorry, I didn't...
court decision on Eagle or
Oh, well, that would be out of business in that big...
well,
No such
a number of academic
We won't be out of business in any of it.
If they rule in our favor, I suspect that it means that they are going to appeal.
May I sum up at this point? We are still headed for an August 12th deadline. We will have next Wednesday session that will cover the substantive things that were mentioned in the motion. And between now and next Wednesday, we will have off unless there are things that individuals wish to do toward the Wednesday meeting. There is basically, I think, a question that will be answered at Wednesday's meeting, one way or the other, and from there on, the decision shouldn't be difficult at all. Those are and I agree with Mr. Fisher that maybe we ought to call the meeting off if there's nothing we can do tonight. Now, I also agree with Mr. Fisher that if there are things we can do, and I believe there are, we should go on with it. Now, I think basically we know what we're coming up with on Wednesday, and we should have no problem making those decisions Wednesday night. I don't think making them tonight would change the thing a bit. You have to make them again for Wednesday anyway, because somebody reconsider and they would be brought up again. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
For my part of it, could I add something else? I don't know how the certain members of the commission got the impression we weren't going to discuss anything substantive tonight, and I wish it hadn't happened.
Well, it did happen, and it happened because Joe said, well, if you're going to have a meeting on Thursday night, and you do anything about the executive, I'll find somebody to ask for reconsideration. So
Mary Froney's going to start in the shit.
and Mary can also.
Well, Mr. Chairman, in all fairness, that's the right that he has.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'd respect his right. If I voted on the prevailing side, I would move for reconsideration.
So, Mr. Chairman, that seems to me that then brings us right back to where we are now with our present schedule, and that is on Wednesday night it will be decided if there's a move for reconsideration. That will be next Thursday, and that's where we would have been had we made a decision tonight. And
Well, perhaps I don't know. Except we would have eliminated one meeting.
Well, be that as it may, we're here, so I'd like to say that by Wednesday I'll do anything and everything I can to correlate all the information that's come into the office so far, from public hearing testimony to the mail-in things and whatever, to give you the backup that you need.
Chairman, I would suggest too, in that regard, if Rick has time, that if there are some items from these hearings that might lend themselves to rewording without discussion by us, that he bring them to propose at that meeting.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
I think it should be pointed out in that regard that in Sherry's absence, we did have one charter production committee. We did go over a number of minor things, and he's been working on those because he does have a couple of weeks here. Anything that was at all substantive has not been touched or left. It's been left special commission.
We have Rick does have something here now for tonight.
Well, not really for, I have drafts of things that the charter.
Hoping not controversial.
Hard for me to tell what's
Yeah, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
Anyway, the point is there were certain things that were identified at the last Charter Production Committee meeting by those people there as something that ought to be reworked. And I did drafts of what I understood was the sense of that committee at that point. They're not in final form for consideration tonight, but they cover such things as determining vacancies in elective office, the frequency of reapportionment, some stuff on community councils, defining resident, what sort of wording we can use in the limitation on initiative and referendum, that sort of thing.
Mr. Chairman, could I suggest that we take those things up as we take up each section of the charter, as we're going through it for a final look, and perhaps we get some order to all of this.
Do it that practical suggestion as a manner of procedure.
And ask Rick to make us aware of it when we are bringing that particular issue up.
All right. We have in the in your packet budget today that Harless requested, and gives us balances.
May I ask whether do those funds carry over to the second fiscal year, or do we lose those to the road?
Unless they're encumbered, they are lost. And I suggest that something we may wish to consider. We cannot, well, now wait a minute, for a charter commission, we have to check, but they work on a budget year, and unless, maybe the fact that they go to us means they are encumbered, but that definitely needs to be checked.
Yeah, the reason I asked is because Mary said we only got 50,000 of the 100,000 we requested, and it would be helpful to carry these funds over.
You know, there was different information than that in the paper, though. I think that matter needs to be
What Mary told me twice. Mary Coffey told me.
Oh, Mary Coffey told me.
Yeah, that Dave Rose moved to give us 50,000 instead of what we requested.
Okay,
So, on the grounds that he...
I thought you said 30,000.
That was 50,000 for the period from June 30 to October, was it not?
Yeah, no, it's our total request for the next fiscal year.
Total request.
Yeah, I guess the thinking was, according to Mary, was that even if it didn't pass in October or in August, it wouldn't take that much more revision to make it acceptable, and therefore we wouldn't need a whole year's time to come around. And I guess you can always go back.
Mr. Chairman, on the budget, may we ask how much of the professional and technical services is encumbered? Do we have that broken down on the next page?
Broken out that way.
I have to admit that I don't understand all that well what our commitment to Mr. Rowan is. And it's my understanding that the $5,000 check that I gave him 2 days ago or so is in a sense encumbered to the end of our work. In other words, he'll bill us something in a few days for the survey he's just done, but that $5,000 is something he keeps on hand as his end payment. Does that make sense? He needs
That
something
shows
that's just
on
cleaning
the
up
second sheet here, professional and technical services,
Oh, yeah,
17,000 down, 12,900 balance, but the encumbrance, the commitment balance, 22,300, that'd be about 5,000 more.
23.5.
23,500, about 5,000, 6,000 more, doesn't show that way.
Yeah, the total amount if we go for the full number of things he offered to do.
All right, well,
Well, Mr. Chairman, what I'm attempting to determine is how much we are going to have left in this professional and technical services so that we could move ahead into a public information campaign. And that's...
From the top of my head, I'd say that about 10,000 more of that 12,000 is committed to Rowan.
Well,
so that leaves us 2,000. Or 2,000.
shouldn't be that much.
Mr. Chairman? Yeah, I'm confused about this too. Could I get two figures? What have we spent and what was our budget? Our budget was $55,000, right?
We spent 17, 20, 25.
And that's our total
Actually,
expenditures together?
I can total, but what we spent is the total of
27.
account. Of the 55. He's asking about the entire budget.
27.
So take
Why
the
don't we just send a note to the clerk and tell her that we believe that the remainder of the budget is encumbered. And that takes care of the problem.
no, it does not. Mr. Chairman, there are two problems. One is a very simple one of determining whether the fact that it's for the Charter Commission, whether we need special action to encumber it so that we don't lose it. The more important part is how much of the account balances is our committed funds,
All right.
so that we will know how much we have toward our public information and so on.
Well, wait a minute, Mr. Chairman. We can switch within our budget. We can switch the money around anywhere we want.
Yes, but we need to know how much that money is free, right?
All right, and what I said to you is that under consultant's fee, the breakdown here where it says Rowan, $12,864 is the amount we have actually paid him of the 23,500 that our contract reads for him. So that's approximately a difference of $10,000. 10,500 or so.
Does that include this 5,000 figure you're talking about?
Yes, this 12,000 includes the 5,000 payment I just gave him. So if you take the balance, 12,914.64, and subtract approximately 10,500, that tells you how much we have left in the consultancy. So it's about 2,500. And
Mr. Chairman?
with a minor exception for the Xerox machine of about $375, I think this reflects everything that's spent or due to be spent by June 30th, except for little petty cash. Because it even comes.
It will come up with about 42.7. Is that what we expect out of 55?
Yes, and then 10,500 more is due to road.
What figure we're down to like $3,000
Yeah,
left?
we're very clear. We're very close.
And that's what we want to encumber, which in the long run is not the beginning of public information.
Well, this, again, this is mechanics, and I think the mechanics, we can easily figure out. If we can have borough clerk help us.
We have about $3,000 of uncommitted money, right?
For this
No,
fiscal
Mr.
year.
Chairman.
Why isn't that
Rob?
What's
Yeah,
that?
that's not relevant, because we don't have an additional $10,500 committed to Rome. That's a possibility,
Oh, yeah, right.
but that's not done. And at this point,
But some of that 10,500 is committed for the work that he just finished, and that we have no
well, then I would submit that we find out how much, and I think we can find out by really asking him. I mean, somehow we should be on top of that.
I think we can't because he's not done with the data processing yet. A lot of it goes on the
Let's get our best estimate.
Another question. We have to have some kind of an itemized company or other to give us the borough to ask them for our money, right? Is that accurate?
We can't just get.
What is the problem?
The balance on our accounts on June 30th?
Okay, that was his original contention, and I said that won't fly.
Yeah.
Why?
I want to,
Well, folks, I think this is mechanics, and it can be, we know what Arliss needs to know, we know what Trish needs to know, how much is unencumbered, and I think that's mechanics. No big,
okay, there's no problem, right?
there shouldn't be any problem, as far as I can see.
Oh, no, I said that's obviously something that we need to check.
We need to know.
My major concern and the reason for asking for this was to see where we were within the budget, how much we had to spend. We have a charter to publish, we have public information, we have no budget for that, we have no method of moving ahead. If we're talking August 12th, obviously that is a critical area.
Okay, but this doesn't include the new fiscal year.
Oh, I'm aware of that too.
Jane?
We have, because that's where we put our appropriation.
Jane?
At the borough closed, we get 50,000 in July 1st. Is that accurate? We've got approximately a slush fund of about 13,000 left from the last fiscal year.
No.
Well, that's,
Some place in the vicinity between 10 and 13 or something.
3 to 7.
that's again a matter of mechanics, to be determined.
Okay, so say forget everything about the last fiscal year. We've got 50,000 to play with as of July 1st.
Should have.
Now, you have to play with is the word.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, if there wasn't a problem, why isn't it here?
Well, it's just that I was asking I have to make a rundown on the account, so that's what I did.
I felt that it should be presented to the Charter Commission, so they'd all know where it was. And it's a
And I'm sorry, I didn't say
mechanical
anything.
problem, and that's all it is.
Mr. Chairman, I thought that the way he presented it, he had to do something.
Oh, the only thing I would like you to do is just give me a quick okay to move enough funds for the rent around. I took too much out of that account, forgetting that the rent isn't due at the end of the month, but at the 20th of the month.
Go ahead, no problem.
Chairman, I so as well.
That's again,
You're on.
Yes, we'll do it.
Go ahead.
That's it though. But the figures remain the same.
To carry on,
That.
We've got, for new business, we have the budget request that Ed gave us to move some money. Second, we have a staffing problem, and tomorrow I'm going to see Ann Stone, or hear from Ann Stone, whether she will come to work for us.
You talk.
In what capacity? In what capacity?
As secretary.
Okay. Replacing Abby completely?
Yes, not completely. Replacing Abby's secretarial capacities only.
All right. Now, what are we going to do about the other duties that Abby?
We discussed that a meeting or two ago, and the decision was to look for a public relations person, public information person.
I suggest
Right.
that's Pat Parnell. We had used to do that.
His name has come up, and there's Malcolm Roberts came in. There have been several people who talked to us already, and I don't know whether Pat will be within our price range or not, but we will certainly talk to him.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to suggest that Jane's committee, which will be responsible for the public information, the charter, interview the applicants and submit a proposal to the commission as soon as possible.
Right. I have a question. Am I supposed to be advertising using the whole number?
I don't think we have time for the whole number. I have to.
I think this is a contract type operation, same as we had with Roll.
Mr. Chairman, Jane, we did talk to Phyllis Bradner. Pardon? She can't do it. OCL? Yes. So we talked to her.
Okay, now my question is just if I can put them all in and do this, that
And I think that Evie has some other
suggestions?
Suggestions for one.
I suggested Evie Ruskin somewhere along the way, but I don't know if I named it Evie Ruskin, or she's been in the legislative affairs.
Jane.
Yes, sir.
Another name that was thrown at me, and I don't know the individual, is Mike Cate, C-A-T-E.
And Mike Rowan had a few suggestions.
I don't know who he is, but he has to be considered for the
Did you get
position.
them?
Yes, I just have to.
C-A-T-E. He's with the borough, I believe, more than. I'll find, I think he's with the borough.
Tim McGinnis did stop by the office
Well, you have a
earlier.
proposal in your packets from previously. He's going to speak to you next Thursday night, assuming we're having a Thursday meeting, are we? After the Wednesday night?
Yes.
Does anybody else have any other suggestions?
But he wants to do a whole media.
You got Malcolm Roberts, Tim McGinnis,
Malcolm,
Malcolm Roberts.
We don't need to pull McGinnis, so that decision should be made ahead of. I don't think we want to put her up our next meeting, because we're going to have much problem getting this thing off the
if
ground.
I'm supposed to interview people and I'm not advertising, I'd like to know who to ask to come and talk. But that's all I'm doing. No, they don't have to come. I just want to get an idea of what I'm trying to do. Okay? I got to be out. Well,
All right. I think that Jane proceed from there. If they have any suggestions for Jane, please see that she gets them. We have,
Oh, Margaret Schmidt, just dawned on me. Margaret Schmidt said something. I was teasing with her at the public hearing, and she said that she really would like something part-time for the summer rather than drudging away at the...
Doesn't she work at the time?
At the time. Well, she's on vacation. 80 hours a week, right?
Well, definitely.
Well, but I mean,
Put
you
her
know,
name in,
something with-
definitely.
I don't know, it's... She's
good.
a possibility.
Put her name in, good, if she's
I just
available.
remembered that she said she was.
She's got experience and everything else, you can't ask for one more.
How serious she was, I don't know, but it
And
really
James,
she
she's got
was
an end with the
happy.
times.
I thought you were taking care of that.
I'm working on that, but it's nice to have somebody backing me.
In your own sweet and subtle way.
Right.
I think it's perfect matching.
I moved
Boy, you're off tonight. What a tango. Okay.
I move that we discuss the preamble of the charter of the Greater Akron area.
All right, before there's a second, I want to tell you that there are three letters that have been received.
Is there a motion on the floor? Do we ever vote on
A
that?
motion on what?
I thought I moved on Arlen, seconded to ask Jane to interview. Ask Jane to interview and bring back up.
You suggested I
I
could
didn't
hear
hear the
you.
motion, I'm sorry.
Oh, you did
Well, I
motion?
suggested and I got a second for my suggestion.
I'll call for the question.
No objection, Mr. Chairman.
Any
There's no
objection?
objection, and it will be so ordered.
Okay.
Hearing none, it is so ordered. There are three letters that have been received. One from Sheila Jones, Sheila Gallagher Jones. One from Jim Swain, from a Director of Public Works for the Greater Anchorage Area Borough. And one from Jack Roderick.
What?
Regarding absences of officers and assembly initiated special assessment. I'll have Debbie run them off in the morning, they will be available.
I think everybody received the one from Mrs. Gallagher.
Not for Mr. Swing, did we?
Do we all have the one from Tom Kelly? Tom Kelly?
Yes, you all received one. I received one.
All right. Now,
Back to Germany.
do you wish to start on the charter on those items that were not being considered next Wednesday?
Do we dare?
Are we there?
Do we dare?
We there. All right.
Now, what we do,
Yeah, please.
Before we go along, can I move that we adjourn this meeting by 10:30? By 10. 10. That's even more than that.
Or if you want to adjourn it now, that's fine with me, but,
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm willing to work, but the room's physical situation doesn't add to any of our demeanors. It really doesn't. I think we're all flushing physically. But
that is really right.
Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion doesn't need a second.
Before we do, Chairman, could you make announcements of any subcommittee things that are happening before next Wednesday?
Oh, thank you. For all of you, Monday morning, there's a man in town from San Francisco who worked with Pete Marwick and Mitchell, and who has been through a number of unification type operations in the States, and will be available to us Monday and Tuesday.
Oh, Monday and Tuesday, I thought
A gentleman from San Francisco, Pete Marwick and Mitchell man, and he wanted an excuse to come up here, so we gave him an invitation.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I wonder if it would be possible for you to meet with the gentleman early on Monday and see that he has the information, knows the proper place, and maybe it would be through the local offices, so that he can get together some basic stuff on the really assets and liabilities of service areas and utilities, and if we could have a meeting with him where we could just talk about some of those and perhaps look for areas, or what suggestions you have.
Well, I had felt that given a portion of Monday to get oriented, and then to have a meeting for those who could attend to talk with them about the utility setup in one of his ports.
Would you like to set that meeting now?
And I have no idea what time would be best for him, but I assume his time will be our time on Monday. If there's a time that would be available to more or of the members, I'd like to have many there to talk to them. How about lunch on Monday for the restaurant?
Okay. Monday, what time?
We get it, I'll catch an afternoon. I'll just delay it up until the last one.
Sure. On that same, in that same general area, per the commission's request, I did meet with Bob Sharp a couple of days ago. He spent a lot of time going over the utilities. I thought he was very helpful in spelling out exactly what the status of the funding was with respect to each utility, and he also had his own views as to how it could be handled in an acceptable, equitable sort of way. I don't know quite what to do with all that information insight at this point. I suppose I could attempt to draft something that would reflect it, or we could talk about it at some point, or postpone the whole thing.
Do you think it might be appropriate to allow Rick to give us that information? Well, no, I was going to say, give us that information at the luncheon meeting we have at the Pete Marwood.
In fact, I'd suggest having Bob Sharp attend the luncheon.
Yes.
Because if there's anybody that knows utility financing, it's Bob Sharp. He has a wonderful feel of it.
You know, we may not disagree with it, but I think it might be.
I think if you get that Bob there.
At the same meeting?
Yeah. Monday.
Does that bother you, Dick?
No, I just thought that guy may be valuable enough that we wouldn't want to confuse it.
No, but I think Bob could ask the right questions, because Bob has all the knowledge of the funds and where they are.
It would probably be good to have them both there in terms of the interplay.
Yeah, that sounds good, Cal. Providing nothing controversial was brought up.
Monday at noon? I would respectfully request, Secretary, to call us all on decision tomorrow, and if we win, in the spirit of reconciliation, of good spirits, I would invite all present and anyone they care to bring to my house for cocktails tomorrow night if you win. That's 3343 West 86.
That's a conflict of interest to be seen in the role. That is.
Well, these guys.
What time?
Where is this lovely house of yours?
Oh, it's not lovely house, it's a slum dwelling. I'm one of the poor people, but it's
Well, this slum dwelling of yours.
3343 West 86 at 6 o'clock tomorrow night.
How can you afford liquor?
Come again?
3342.
Should be,
That must be out in Sand Lake. That's the high rate.
Don't forget, when you get a job, you're going to have a party.
Oh, back to San Lake.
When I get a job, we're going to have a blowout.
Okay.
What kind of job am I getting? Oh, I don't know. Oh, I thought you were saying.
This charter passed, I'm almost tempted to bring the whole commission up to stuff again for the